November Hill 100-day stallion performance test, and a Dutch warm blood curing. The November Hill 100-day stallion performance test is the performance phase of the evaluation process for the American Hanoverian Society. It is fully accepted by the German Hanoverian Verband, the Westphalia Association, and the Rhinelander Association. Mr. and Mrs. O.R. Fuchs, owners of the farm, hosted the test, the only 100-day test in North America to be recognized by these German registries. The test consists of 3 months of rigorous training and evaluation of the stallions in dressage, show jumping, and cross-country, with the emphasis placed on inherent athletic ability and temperament. Managing the test was Mr. Gerd Zuther, a 20-year veteran of Germany's stallion testing programs. Half of the horse's scores were given by Mr. Zuther, based on performance throughout the 100 days. The test was judged by a total of 8 German and American judges. We will follow the Morgan Stallion Fox Trim Classic through the various phases of the test. His impressive performance in the program was a tremendous testimonial to the breed and earned Morgan's valuable respect in the sport horse world. Popular announcer Jeff Marsh of Eurosport Incorporated will describe the various activities and participants which comprised the November Hill test.
Welcome to November Hill Farm in Keswick, Virginia. Performance testing is the method of selection under which the testing procedure puts selection pressures on all the heritable athletic traits that correlate to the classic sports. We are seeing here first the horses being free jumped. They are free jumped through a chute and judged by 2 independent judges from Europe, in which case they're looking basically for the heart and the bas school, that is the technique over the jump, how well the horse jumps round, how he uses himself. If he makes a fault, if he knocks down a rail, does he come back down the chute and refuse the jump, or does he come and attack the jump with vigor? These are the athletic and heart. Basically, heart is what we're looking for here. How much heart does this youngster have? And what we try to do here is to test not only the athletic ability of the stallion, but the mind of the stallion as well. No matter how athletic the horse may be, if he does not have the mind to go with it, the right ability to go with the athletic ability, he is not of value to the sporting horse community. One must remember that well over 90% of the horse owners in North America and Europe are the amateur owners. So the mind is one of the more important facets that we are testing.
This little guy's got a great attitude. Fox Trim Classic, the 3rd stallion in the lineup today.
Bear in mind further that the classic stallion is being tested against 16 to 17 hand European stallions. He's really been taken out of his realm and put into their world, and he's competing very well.
Hey, boy, I'm sitting, you can see this guy concentrate all the way down that line. You knew he was going to clear that last. What a nice little guy. Fox Trim Classic from Morgan Stallion, born in 1985.
This horse here is for sure, who goes back to the Furiosa line. Furiosa, the French thoroughbred, being one of the 4 leading sires of sporting horses of all time by progeny summary. These horses that are competing in the test with Fox Trim Classic are stallions that have been through a selection approval as yearlings and again as 2-year-olds. They must be approved to get here, and they only will approve a very small percentage of the stallions presented.
This again is West Coast, 4-year-old, born 1985 by Westminster, out of a dam by Cardinal high off the key.
The idea is to select only the best, to breed the best to the best, according to the laws of Mendel and Baker. Therefore, we have very little use for stallions that will not improve the breed. We have here a choice of being either a multiplier of the breed or an improver of the breed.
West Coast is provisionally licensed with both.
These horses are judged for their gaits both inside and outside to give the horse a fair evaluation.
And the next horse to go on course is Fox Trim Classic.
Doris Klingbeil is riding Fox Trim Classic. Again, they will start with the trot, 750 meters at 250 meters per minute. The walk will come last. The walk is 300 meters at 100 meters per minute. After the trot, we will do the canter, which is 1,500 meters at 500 meters per minute. Now watch how far the hind leg comes up in the trot and how well the horse uses his loin, his long, or if you will, his longissimus dorsi, how well he uses his hocks, his gluteus maximus behind, how far forward he reaches. If a horse cannot cover the ground and have the length of stride that is necessary to do the sports, then he cannot compete. And this is what we look for basically here. The soundness of the movement, the elasticity and suspension of the movement, the freedom of the shoulder, the use of the hocks, and how well the horse can impulse forward. Fox Trim Classic has finished his basic trot work and will soon commence on his canter work. We now see the Classic Stallion on the canter. Look how well he comes forward. A very rhythmical three-beat canter is what we look for. You can hear him. You can hear it. Ba-rum, ba-rum. It should be just like a drum. And he's such a light mover. The thing that impressed me the most about this stallion in the 100-day test is the thing that is the hardest to judge, and that was his heart. I've never seen such a little guy with such a big heart. He competed against these other stallions, 16 to 17 hands, and impressed everybody, including the Europeans, and it was very difficult for them to admit that this is a little guy with no European breeding at all that could come in here and win the hearts of everybody in the 100-day test. Now look at that good four-beat walk. We look for a long walk. Look how forward from the side view. He must overreach his front foot with his hind foot. He must come forward with it by rounding his back. We look for a stallion that does have that long walk, and here's a little guy with a walk that stretches over 10 Texas miles. We also look at the correctness of the flight of the limbs from both the front and the back, how much they wing in or wing out, both in the front and the back. Do they track base narrow or base wide? Those are factors that come into play when scoring the walk. Remember, all the athletic traits come from the walk. If you don't have a walk, you do not have an athletic horse. It's just basically that simple. Derringer is by the stallion Devon. Devon going back to Darmstadt, which is the D line in Germany, one of the more athletic lines. It's interesting to note that the 100-day test is a testing procedure under which warm blood stallions or stallions being tested for the warm blood registries receive their breeding license. In Europe and in America, if you own a Hanoverian or an Oldenburg stallion or a Holsteiner stallion, just because you own the stallion and own the mare does not mean that you have a registrable baby when you breed the two. They both have to be brought up into the breeding books. That's the reason for the testing. In Germany, they'll start off with about 5,000 stallions and come down to the 100-day test, allowing approximately 50 stallions to enter the test. It gives you an idea of the competition and process of elimination. The stallion Walter Scott, a 3-year-old Hanoverian by Wilt Fang, who is by Vindichrist, tracing back to the stallion Ferdinand, one of the 4 leading sires of sporting horses of all time. We're now getting ready to see the testing of the gates on the inside arena. As you watch the horses inside, you'll see them doing a serpentine down the wall. You'll see them turn stopped and turn into the wall. This is all to see how supple and flexible the horse is, how well he accepts his aids, how well he accepts the leg, how well he obeys the rider, his presence of mind amongst the crowd and amongst the different stallions. Again, he's being judged by 2-3 independent judges, along with the associate judges or apprentice judges from the United States that are learning to judge. So in the ring, we will have Dr. Schoen from the Hanoverian Verband, Dr. Wilkins, the former chief executive of the Verband, Herr Manfred Lopp, the Hauptsattelmeister of the Hanoverian 100-day test, 3-time Olympian, Herr Gerrit Zuther, the Stallion Master and Hop Saddlemeister at November Hill Farm for the 100-day test, along with the American Associate Judges. There's also an outside rider test the last week. Prior to the final 3 days of the 100-day test, outside riders come in. A very, very intricate testing procedure here. This is not a competition of one horse against the rest of the horses. This is a comparison of the horse, the stallion, to his peer group here. This is to assure the genetic quality and genetic progress. And if you look at the dominance that the European horses have had in international sports, then you'll see it has very definitely had a big impact with this breeding system. If you put the selection pressures on the athletic traits, then you can sit down and do a covariance study and come out with a predicted difference as to how much genetic reach a stallion should give you in a given mating. And this is the basis, one of the many bases that we use for our breeding criteria in the warm blood industry. We think it's a very important criteria that the horses be able to perform, that they be able to offer the breeder genetic reach. Without genetic reach, without looking for the next generation of stallions, the most you can do genetically using the same old stallion year after year after year is to stand still genetically. If a stallion is a superior performer in the breeding pen as well as on the athletic field of play, then his sons and grandsons should outperform him. And therefore, we should always be looking for the next young stallion. We're now observing the stallions coming to the front, coming toward the crowd at the end of their gates in the indoor arena. We expect them to stop squarely. And now watch as the riders walk away from the stallions. They walk around, they pet the stallion, they test here. This is a test of the mind of the stallion. Here's a stallion that's been broken into a sweat, that's been ridden hard, that's been tested with the other stallions. 5 stallions standing in a straight line across from each other, and the stallion riders back away from the stallions. They're expected to stand and to stand still and to obey voice command here. They will then approach the stallion. The stallion again is expected to stand still and to accept the rider as he comes forward. Now we come to the the stadium jumping.
And to the brick wall. Now back around to the low wall. See that nice
Course here is Grand Louva on the stadium jumping. Grand Louva is by the famous Hanoverian stallion Granda, and out of an own daughter of Dur Louva, the lion, the foundation sire of the L line. Wisecracker is only a 5-year-old by Bindepunt, and out of a dam named Prince by Discus, same breeding variant you see in the natural.
3 strides to the brick wall.
As we watch Fox Trim Classic go across the stadium jumping course, he's being ridden by Jeannie Cresciati of Barracks Road in Charlottesville. She's one of the top international riders in the Virginia area. Stadium jumping is a very, very important part of the 100-day test as it pertains to both fox hunting, show hunting, and the show jumping world. What we look for here is not only the stallion's scope of jumping. His approach to the jump is very important. Does he drag the rider down the line, or does he come down the line to the jump on a buckle? How well do you set the rider sets the horse up for the jump is very, very important. The horse must listen to the rider here. This stadium jumping course was designed specifically to test the ability of the horse not only to jump, but to twist and to turn. There are many very tight turns here. This tests how supple the horse is, how athletic he is, and his mind. The 100-day test is a very difficult test on the horse's mind. They're cranked together for 100 days. There's a lot of pressure put on them, and this is a very important factor here.
Over the small log. Nice job of slowing him up, backing him off to the fence so he could see it. Coming to the triple. Hey, there's a little horse with a big heart. Fox Trim Classic.
You saw a horse on course designed for horses of Olympic potential, and here he comes across and really listened to the aids, really listened to his rider, set himself up for each jump. Very, very classic in his technique. Perhaps a little aggressive down the line to the jumps, as you like for him to be able to come on the buckle. On the far side, you saw him catch a rail, and it didn't bother him a bit. He came right down 4 strides, pop over the next fence, and more determined than ever to go clean. We come now to the cross-country test, which tests the ability of a horse over a cross-country course over timber fences, as one would find on a 3-day event course. This is a 4,000-meter course with 10 fences. On this particular day, it had been very cold in the morning, and it's on a hillside. The entire course is very hilly and mountainous-type terrain, and is on primarily fescue grass with a red earlite and illeite-based clay underneath it. And as the day progressed, the footing became very treacherous. So this is not only a test of the horse's ability to gallop 4,000 meters and jump, it's also a test of his ability to be able to balance himself, to keep his footing, his coordination, and his mind as far as his listening to the rider. It's very important that he accept his aids here. Then as soon as he finishes his cross-country course, he goes down for a 1,000-meter gallop on a flat track, and then goes through a vet check to make sure that everything is functioning normally. We will now see Fox Trim Classic on the cross-country course. Jeannie did an excellent job keeping his balance, keeping him in her hand, on the bit, but yet not restricting him and pulling on him too much. It takes a very talented rider as well as a talented horse. In the corral we go. A very scary jump over the log, and going up the hill now to the firewood jump, which is jumping uphill into the shadows. This was a very complicated course. Some of the jumps, the horses were jumping uphill into 4-foot wide fences, 4 feet high, 4 feet wide. It varied in width and height and spots depending on where they approached it. A horse, as I say, they must be very fit as well as very rideable to get through this course correctly, and they must be through in a certain time frame. They're only allowed so many minutes to get across this course. They're judged on how they approach the fence, on how well they can gallop. Remember, in stadium jumping, the rider is able to set up how many strides he wants to go in between each jump and which lead he wishes to jump off of. Unlike the stadium jumping, to cross country, they must gallop a very long way in between each fence, and they must be able to adjust themselves to the fence as they come into the fence, either taking a long spot or going in deep and jump flattening out if it is a long spot to try to be able to do the distance. It's very much a combined effort on the part of everybody involved in the 100-day test to get these horses fit, to get them acclimated, and to keep them sound and to keep their minds right during the 100 days. And it's a tribute to November Hill Farm and the entire staff. The racetrack test is a straight 1,000-meter dash. He's got to go around, I believe it's 2.5 times around the outside of the stadium jumping within a marked track. And then he goes over to the vet check. Obviously, the horse with the littler frame size, the Morgan Stallion Fox Trim Classic, at a little bit of a disadvantage on the cross-country course, one would think, but yet came out with one of the faster times, especially on the flat track. He was one of the fastest horses available on the flat track after going 4,000 meters on a very, very hilly cross-country course with 10 obstacles. So we feel that this is very much of a test of the horse's athletic ability, pure athletic ability here, as well as presence of mind. One must really take their hat off to this young star. He has a motor that just won't quit and a heart that knows no fear. He's certainly one of the more athletic horses that was on the test, and bear in mind he beat in the scoring. He scored higher than many of the Hanoverian stallions that was on the test.
The Joneses were very satisfied with their stallion's final overall score, or index, of 91.9. The passing score required for licensing of Hanoverian stallions, the most rigorously tested of the German breeds, is 90. Of particular surprise was Classic's index for the jumping faces, 108.48, ranking well above the average in this area. Mr. Zuther commented that Classic had never refused a jump during the entire 100 days of the test.
And I think that he definitely was the choice stallion of the 100-day test. He was the one that captured the minds and the hearts of everybody because of his heart. The main factor in the stallion, I felt, was his heart, and that is the part that one cannot see, that one cannot measure, that one does not know until the stallion finishes the 100-day test.